This video is brought to you by a huge mountain of drugs. Yargle and Multani versus Urabrask. Sylvan Library in hand I like, so we will keep that, try and outrace the Urabrask. Just a tap land from our opponent, that's a Shatterskull Smashing. And going to save the Wooded Foothills for the Sylvan Library because we might want to shuffle the cards that are on top. So we can dump some stuff we don't like on top of the library and shuffle it all around later. A Khan's Bastion from our opponent into a Grim Monolith, so likely see the Urabrask next turn. And we draw into a Fake Your Own Death in order to keep our Yargle and Multani in play. So it's just a Silver Library for us this turn. And we do see another mountain from our opponent, so see if they want to tap down that Grim Monolith. They do lose out on a mana here unless they've got something else they can cast into it. No, just deciding to leave it there. Sylvan Library, we do of course draw into these cards and have a look at what we've got access to. Okay, so it's Signing Blood, a Shizo, and a Tear Asunder. So next turn we'll be able to blow up the Urabrask with that. Going to keep the Shizo and put the Signing Blood on top, and then we can shuffle away the Signing Blood for a tap land, I think. I think we've already got our next turn sorted out with the Tear Asunder. Urabrask going to swing in first of all. And it looks as though our opponent might just be passing the turn, 4 cards in hand, so maybe we just blow up the Grim Monolith here and leave their commander in play. Because I assume that that's what they're holding up the mana for. Frees up our next turn as well to do something else that will hopefully be a bit more constructive. Alright, so they go for Deflecting Swat, and that goes after our Sylvan Library, so that was always going to blow up the Sylvan Library no matter what we do. Even if we went for it next turn after the actual Urabrask, they still would have redirected it, so get out the Shockland. We'll take the damage from Urabrask, we're already down to 30. So not going to draw into another Signing Blood, although yeah, argument to be made for me not going for the shuffle there, because we could have played a Signing Blood here. I was hoping to get into another spell, but just drop the Woodland Cemetery and give our opponent even more time. Didn't allow them to untap the Grim Monolith at least. They get into another rock in Mindstone, 3 cards left in hand, and not playing any more instants or sorceries, we go to 8 commander. Alright, and there's a Nature's Claim for us as well. So just drop a Swamp, and I think we'll allow our opponent to tap out into the Grim Monolith, assuming that that's what he does. Okay, just going for the draw a card instead. So we can hold on to the Nature's Claim here in this case. And Overmaster, so pretty much just a cantrip spell. We're not going to be countering anything of theirs anyway. And obviously that is effectively free with the commander in play. Now we see Magmatic Insight, so going to draw 2 cards, discard a land to that. And again, that's free. I mean, we can survive this as long as they don't get into a Torbran or anything like that. We're hoping they don't get a massive Storm count as well. Okay, Runaway Steamkin now. So I'm guessing that they've just drawn into that, otherwise they would have cast the 2 cantrip spells into it. Now we're going to take 4 more from the Urabrask when it goes into the red zone. So we're being really slow getting down the Yargle here because I haven't managed to get into any kind of ramp, unfortunately. Okay, Renegade Tactics is another means of cantripping. So a plus counter on the Steamkin, and we know what Urabrask is going to do. Alright, and they are going to transform it here, so this is exactly what I've been holding on to the Nature's Claim for. Because as a saga, it is an enchantment, of course. 3 damage to us, and each spell we control. So I want to see if they go through to the end step. They might have one of the few means of proliferating in red. And doesn't look like they're going to do anything, so we'll just blow up their commander. Unfortunately, they're going to be able to afford to untap the Grim Monolith here because they've got 4 mana held up, which means it'll be easier for them to recast the Urabrask, but they will tap down a decent amount of red mana for that. Alright, we draw into Beast Within, which I'm quite happy with. I'm hoping my opponent doesn't get to go off at all next turn, so go for the Urborg. I want to surprise my opponent with the Shizo, and we are going to be shields down on our Yargle, an 18-6, and there we go, they untap the Grim Monolith in response to that. So as you would expect, Urabrask into play. This gets the 3rd counter on it, so they can get a bunch of red mana from that. So as you would expect, Urabrask coming straight back into play off the back of that Grim Monolith. And just one more spell. Okay, a Lightning Bolt onto us, we're at 16. And the Runaway Steamkin generates some more mana here. We do have life gain in the deck, but obviously we've been very, very slow here. And a Torbrand, Thane of Redfell, so if they've got many more spells that they can chain off into, that will likely finish us off. A Vindictive Flamestoker, just one card left in our opponent's hand. And it was an Infernal Plunge, so we're going to just generate 3 mana. They sacrifice the Runaway Steamkin for that, sending us down to 9 off the 3 damage that we now take from the Urabrask. Drawing a card with the Mind Stone, trying to continue the chains. Alright, so now we need to see. Okay, we've got a Mana Crypt. Might as well play the Mana Crypt because our opponent probably has us next turn. We have to turn in sideways here and try and get our opponent. In fact, thanks to that Mana Crypt, I think we can get our opponent here. So play that out. Play the Shizo Death Storehouse. That gives our Yargle Fear, meaning it can't be blocked except by Artifact and black creatures. And then carefully, with Return of the Wildspeaker, we go for +3/+3 on our non-human creatures. That's really in here for a card draw effect, but obviously it pulls double duty. Alright, and getting our opponent on 21 points of commander damage, so not the most orthodox win there. In fact, we didn't really deserve to win that one, I don't think, but our opponent just ran out of steam towards the end. We are in the multiplayer room where we get 40 life as opposed to 30, so that's to our benefit in this case. We'll play another one. Couple of Golgari commanders this time, Yargle and Multani versus Vati, il-Dal. No green mana there, unfortunately, so have to get rid of that hand. And no ramp, so have to get rid of that one. We're going down 2 cards here. That is better, so we get rid of Rancor, and it'll have to be the commander's play as well, unfortunately, because we refill our hand with the Return of the Wildspeaker. We are going to need a second black source here as it stands. Alright, and there's a Chilled Lotus, so we're actually going to get off to a way faster start than we thought. What is that? Yeah, that's actually a turn 1 Yargle, isn't it? I think we have to go for it. So we just have to pray that our opponent doesn't have spot removal at this point. But it's not often we're going to get down a turn 1 Yargle, so we have to go for it. Can't go for the Return of the Wildspeaker to get our opponent again on this turn, unfortunately. Otherwise it will be a turn 2 win. Our opponent allows us to draw and lets us get into Fake Your Own Death, which could be... yeah, that could be a big mistake by our opponent. He did tap down some mana. Let's swing in. Yep, and there's a Berserk. Hang on. Target creature gains trample and gets +X to its power, where X is its power, at the beginning of your next end step. So they've just given themselves commander damage as far as I can tell. So this thing jumps up to a 36/6 with trample. We are going to have to sacrifice it, but they go down to commander damage here. Okay, maybe our opponent didn't feel as though he could outrace us there and decided to have a bit of fun with it. I assume that's what happened there. We'll try another one. I do have some interesting interactions in the deck, so it would be good to show those off at some point. Up against Jodah the Unifier this time. And I think we keep that because we've got all of our colours and some fast mana and some removal. Alright, got a couple of pieces of removal now with the Beast Within. Start off with the Hall of the Bandit Lord because that's always going to come into play tapped. And it's obviously really good to get our commander down with haste. Arcane Signet for Jodah. So we'll just get down our Verdant Catacombs, likely going to go for a tapped Shockland with that. And then it's a Feyburrow Elder for our opponent, which will tap for 5 mana once the commander comes down. Okay, getting to more fast mana. This is the fast mana video apparently. We want a couple of swamps, so let's get out a swamp. Might as well play out the Sol Ring here. Might get some removal out of our opponent's hand with that, and we can hold up the Beast Within this way. So could have gone for Beast Within onto the Feyburrow Elder there, just in case they decided to tap it for mana into the Jodah, but I assume they'd get down a land and go for their commander here, so they can still float 2 bits of mana, but I'm going to blow up the Feyburrow Elder so they don't get 5 mana. Okay, didn't tap in response there, curiously. And we could go for our commander here. I wonder if we would rather go for an Assassin's Trophy though. We don't have a means of getting our commander through, unfortunately. Yeah. We've had some fast games here, so I'll just risk getting out the fast mana. We'll go Nature's Law first for an untapped Bayou. So we're getting down the Yargle with haste, and we're pretty much forcing our opponent to block here. because there's every chance that we get them next turn if they don't. So getting rid of that beast token, they obviously want to keep the Jodah, so they're going to get Jodah for a turn is the risk here. And they did manage to drop a land on turn 5, so if we'd gone for Assassin's Trophy onto the Jodah, they could have just recast it anyway. There is a Surak Dragonclaw. I'm managing to get into Gonti, which has Death Touch. We've got the Gorvo's Vengeance, so yeah, we can somewhat keep our commander in play. They do, of course, exile a card off the top of our library with the Gonti, so they might have got into an Undying effect for the Jodah there, maybe. We'll have to take a hit for 8 from the Jodah. Could maybe encourage our opponent to swing in full hog at us next turn, because they might not expect the Goyo's Vengeance. But if we put our commander in the command zone, then maybe they will. Okay, it's a Knight's Whisper for us, so we can go for the Knight's Whisper first of all. Gets us, well, into... yeah, I think we've hit pretty much all of our fast mana here, a Jeweled Lotus and an Ancient Tomb. Throw out a Swamp, and I think we're quite eager to get rid of that Gonti, so let's swing in at the Gonti. No doubt they will make a block here. And yep, getting rid of our commander. So we won't put it in the command zone, we'll leave it in the graveyard. And I'll risk going for the Assassin's Trophy on my opponent's turn. They get an untapped land either way, and that's just because if they do have some kind of Undying effect, then it'll likely bring in the Jodah back tapped and add Summoning Sickness to it. Okay, we do manage to get rid of the commander. They'll likely be able to afford to get down the Jodah again anyway. And they do manage to drop a land. I don't think they missed a land drop yet. Yeah, so just going straight in for the Jodah again, unfortunately. Maybe should have waited until the end of the turn to get that out of the way, because I assume that they go in with Surak here. It's not like we can get them on commander damage next turn anyway. So let's go for the Goyo's Vengeance now. We will have to sacrifice our commander at the end of the turn, but this isn't necessarily going to help us. Need something decent off the top. Yeah, it's just more mana, so yeah, let's swing in here. Might be able to get our opponent to block with the Jodah, and we will trade commanders if that's the case. Okay, we do get them to trade. I'm not against that. It gives us another draw effectively. They feel as though it's too risky to allow us to get through, because we could buff our commander with a Giant Growth or something. So drop the Bloodstained Maya and we will pass. And now we see Saskia the Unyielding, which does have Vigilance and Haste. So going to deal at least 9 damage to us here. So we go down to 6, and then Saskia had a trigger on the stack for 6 damage to us as well. See what we were drawing into. Hopefully the client shows us. Yeah, just more mana. Could not stop getting into mana that game. Wow. Yeah, we were doing absolutely nothing that game. There's... yeah, the client just wants to give you the same cards over and over again. Return of the Wild Speaker for a 3rd time. Well, I'll show you the interesting parts of the deck at some point, hopefully. Try one more, I think. Playing against Prime Speaker Zagana this time with a pretty stacked hand. We will definitely keep Misty Rainforest in for a tapped Shockland. And Exploration for our opponent allows him to drop another forest. And it's another forest for us, so we go Ancient Tomb, so that we can go for a turn 2 Cultivate. Just 1 land for now from our opponent, and that is a Dryad of the Elysian Grove into the Flooded Grove, which they can now tap for mana of any colour thanks to that creature. Alright, and that is a Wooded Foothills for us, so if we go for Grim Monolith off the Ancient Tomb, we'll need, yeah, any of the lands in hand will do, so Grim Monolith will get down our commander as soon as we can. And now we'll challenge our opponent to deal with the Yargle. Might be that they have Pongify or something like that. They didn't use it at the end of the turn though, so we'll assume that they don't. Jared, Golgari Lichlord, obviously in here to fling the Yargle at our opponent. Want to play that and then do the ability on the same turn, so that is effectively a 7 mana spell, I look at it. A Mirror Maid from our opponent is probably on the Grim Monolith. So they'll be able to go for the Prime Speaker Zagana. They don't have a big creature to drop it into, unfortunately. Be funny if they managed to gain control of the Yargle and cast the Prime Speaker Zagana into it. Alright, and there is a Demonic Embrace for us, so yeah, maybe we can get our opponent here. I'm going to go for casting the Sylvan Library first of all to see if our opponent has any counter magic they want to use on that. They are holding priority, but they're deciding not to, so we'll go after the Demonic Embrace. This will give our Yargle +3 to its power and flying. That makes it a 21-7. So we swing in and hopefully get straight through to our opponent. Yep, once again, another fast game. So you're going to get a few this video apparently. Playing against Blitzwing this time. We've got ramps, some means of card draw and haste. One of the interesting cards that we've got in the deck. So we'll try this one. No plays from our opponent on turn 1. We see a Farseek. That brings in a tap land at all times, so we definitely go for the Farseek here. A Pack Rat from our opponent. Okay, that's a Garruk's Uprising, so we concentrate on ramp here. The Rat Pack turning in sideways towards us. And just holding up 3 mana. Okay, managing to get into another land, so I think we can go for the Garruk's Uprising here and we'll grab a swamp with the Polluted Delta. Remembering standard from way back when now, we see a Desecration Demon. Getting hit by the Pack Rat just for 1. Okay, and yeah, nothing we can do here. Got into 2 ramp spells but missed a land, so can't go for our commander. A Raving Dead this time, taking us down by 7. Alright, there is a Hall of the Bandit Lord, so we'll be able to play our commander next turn with haste, but yeah, we are falling behind here. Don't want to play out the Concordant Crossroads when our opponent's playing decent creatures. Obviously can't sacrifice into the Desecration Demon to keep it tapped down. A Homeward Path from our opponent isn't going to be of much use to them this game. So taking a big hit again, going down by 9, down to 20. And we lose half of our life total to this thing. And then we see the Blitzwing come into play. That is a 6/5 and takes us down with the trigger. We lose life equal to the amount of life we've lost this turn. So yeah, going a bit too slow there and gave our opponent all the time in the world, but there we go, we got into the fast manner eventually. Lots and lots of fast games today. Alright, ended up playing against this player again. Should be an interesting one to end the video on. A bit heavy, so we'll try it and get into some fast manner in the Jeweled Lotus. Yeah, okay. Get rid of the Galter. Turn 1 Sol Ring from our opponent. And taking himself into Everflowing Chalice, which will tap for 1 mana. Okay, there's a Necropotence we can get down on turn 3, but next turn, which is turn 3, it will be the Yargle most likely, unless we want to hold up the Veil of Summer, which might be a good idea. Depends on what our opponent does ultimately. Okay, there is a Gauntlet of Power, which does work on our swamps as well. Okay, so there's an Ancient Tomb. We've got 4/6 mana. So if we go Ancient Tomb, need to work out if I think I can get the commander down as well here. No, we're not going to have enough black mana, unfortunately, because we need to get green mana from the Jeweled Lotus. How is this worded? At the beginning of your end step, target opponent loses life equal to what they lost this turn, so they're not going to be able to hurt us with that just yet. Yeah, I want to try and get into some more mana off the Necropotence, and I'll play the Jeweled Lotus because I don't think a mono black deck is going to do anything about Jeweled Lotus. More likely to duress it out of our hand or something. So we'll just put 4 life into the Necropotence and we'll draw 4 cards here. That gets us into the green mana we need, so next turn we're going to be able to hold up the Veil of Summer against the black player, which is good. Don't have any green mana available for the Nature's Claim, unfortunately. They read the bones from our opponent, scry 2, lose 2, and draw 2. And there we see a Doom Whisperer, which is a 7/7 at the moment. They decided to surveil away a duplicate, which would have been good against us actually. Underworld Connections as well. So they're hunting for something very specific, a combo piece I would think. There's a Viper's Kiss and a Hero's Downfall. Shizo isn't necessarily going to be all that useful to us here. Let's go for all the green mana. So we get down our commander, and yeah, the colours are a bit weird here. It'd be good to be able to go Nature's Claim onto the Gauntlet, but we want to really hold up the Veil of Summer. Terra Sunder's obviously really good as well. Yeah, we just have to play it cool here, I think. Put a life into the Necropotence. I'm not sure what my opponent's combos are. It might have been worth going for the Terra Sunder onto the Doom Whisperer. He was obviously surveilling for something specific there. But until I learn my opponent's deck, it's difficult to say what's worth removing and what isn't. There is a Disciple Bolus for us to gain some life. Okay, there is a Profane command. We're going to lose 8 life, and then they are going to grab the duplicate, which is why they surveilled it before. Yeah, we gain hexproof from blue and black. That's why I said it was so good against us. The Veil of Summer doesn't really help here. So we get that exiled, and we'll likely get hit for 7 by the Doom Whisperer. Okay, so maybe we're going to be able to get past the duplicant if we get some kind of haste going or something. I doubt it, but I'll go Tear Asunder onto the duplicant, because we might want to gain life from the Nature's Claim on the Necropotence. Of course, we don't draw into a card with Necropotence, so go for the Swamp. We're really struggling on the green mana this game, unfortunately. So we just get down our commander again and hope that we can survive another turn cycle. Going to Necropotence twice, our opponent is surveilling cards now as well. Okay, so they've been Whip of Erebos, some lands, a Starscream, Lifebane Zombie, a Mardu Shadow Spear, Staff of the Death Magus, Blood Scrivener, Gifted Aetherborn, Filigree Familiar. Yeah, they're just going hard here. I'll just expand the graveyard and you can have a look yourself. Alright, still no lands for us, no green lands. We just draw into a Rampant Growth. There's a Rushed Rebirth as well. And yeah, they do have, that's probably what they were fishing for, a Murder. So back into the command zone we go. And our opponent throws out an Ebon Blade Reaper and a Blood-Soaked Champion. And we're likely going down next turn, I would think. So it'll just have to be the Shizo. And yeah, we're not going to do anything this game, so let's just get down the Disciple of Bolas for chump blocking. And I'll have to go for the Nature's Claim onto the Necropotence. Can't even go for the Rampant Growth to fix our colours a little bit. So I'm not doing the maths here, I'm not working out. Our opponent hits us for 7, but we'll be at 9. Yeah, our opponent goes wide on us here. Let's go for the Nature's Claim onto our own Necropotence. But I think our opponent's just going to go wide on us regardless here. They're at 0 cards in hand, so if we managed to stick our commander at any point, then we would have been able to do something, but yeah, the Doom Whisperer managed to fix our opponent's draws quite nicely, and of course there we get into a land finally. So yeah, just going wide, and we will take the damage here. And it's a good game to our opponent. I think, yeah, not a particularly satisfying game, seeing as how our deck didn't do exactly what it wanted to do, so I'll try and end on a different game. Third time's a charm against this opponent. Yavimaya gives us double green in the Greater Good, which is really good. So if our opponent can point spot removal at the Yargle, then we can draw cards regardless. And we've got a turn 1 Rampant Growth here, so our colours should be fixed this game, unlike last game. Obviously go for Swamp with the Rampant Growth, seeing as how we have a Yavimaya in play. A Blood-Soaked Champion from our opponent on turn 1. Which helped finish us off last game. Okay, there's a Shadow Spear we can get down this turn. We need 1 more land next turn. Let's go for Greater Good, making use of that Yavimaya mana, thankfully. And the Shadow Spear can give +1/+1, trample and lifelink. So we're just really eager to get into a land next turn. A Blight Beetle for our opponent, which has protection from green, which is funny. Trample will still go straight through it though. Alright, there's that Cosmic Hunger I need to swap out. Yeah, again, not doing anything. Got off to a really good start, but getting hurt by not getting into the land drops we need. Our opponent putting a Contaminated Ground onto our Yavimaya, turning it into a swamp. Yeah, I haven't seen that one before. That's a nice bit of land hate. That totally screws up our colours again. We can still go for our commander if we get into a forest though. Okay, Goreclaw we can't play because we don't have a green source. That would have helped us get down our commander because obviously it makes it cost less. But our colours are screwed here. Out comes Starscream, and they can go straight into the red zone against us here. Thanks to Starscream we do become the Monarch, so we've got twice as much chance to get into the lands we need here. Nope, just stay at Jared Golgari Lichlord, so yeah, if not for the Contaminated Ground, it would have been Goreclaw last turn into our commander. We'll draw with the Monarch, and still not getting into it. A Goryo's Vengeance. Our opponent swings in with everything again. They are going to become the Monarch, so transforming into Starscream Power Hungry. And there we see a Filigree Familiar. Drawing a card again with the Monarchy. And we're down to 17 here, losing the flip to Mana Crypt as well. Alright, and there's an Overgrown Tomb, so we have to shock that in, take even more life. We're not fated to do anything against this deck, I don't think. But we have to try. We lose 2 life to the Contaminated Ground as well, going down to 10. Starscream will be transformed at the beginning of the turn, and we lose 2 life to that. So they can probably just swing in at us and then play the commander this turn. It looks like that's exactly what they're doing. So we'll just block the Filigree, take 5, and all our opponent has to do is play his commander here. Yep, there comes Blitzwing, Cruel Tormentor, and we'll go through to the end step, and that is us done. Awesome stuff. Yeah, I really like when we come across unusual decks here, and it's not, I don't think I've seen a Blitzwing deck before, so yeah, that's a really interesting one. Going to make some edits to the deck, I think, because we were struggling a little bit there on some occasions. That Cosmic Hunger is a dead card, and yeah, there's some bits we can do to it, so might go through and do that now. Alright, so let's get rid of that Cosmic Hunger, and I'll put the Murderous Rider Swift End in here. I have a bunch of basics in the deck for Traverse the Outlands, but judging by how fast the deck is going to go, I wasn't sure about this card, to be honest, in this deck, because we just want to swing in as fast as possible. I think I'm actually going to trade that out for an Arcane Signet, and I'll mess around with the lands a bit to put more dual lands in and stuff so that we're not struggling on colours like we were in a few games there. Alright, I've messed around with the mana base a little bit, there's more duals in there now, and took out one of the protection spells as well to add a Baleful Mastery, a little bit more spot removal. I also took out Bolus's Disciple for the Hunter's Prowess. I'm hoping that this will be able to buff our commander enough to not only refill the hand, but one-shot our opponent on occasions. And an Animate Dead in place of the Galter. Galter's in here for a little bit of redundancy, but in 1v1 I think it's going to be too slow, and we're just going to want to hit with our actual commander. Yargle and Multani up against Sisay, Weatherlight Captain with no ramp whatsoever is not good enough. Yeah, the Sylvan Library can hopefully get us into something there. So let's get rid of the Titanith Rex. Candelabra of Tornos from our opponent. We draw into a dual land, so yeah, just go for a swamp. I don't want to fix my opponent's green with the Yavin Maya if I don't have to. See a Deserted Temple as well. Okay, and a Beast Within for us, so let's drop down the Pain Land and go for the Sylvan Library. And I think we've seen this deck on the channel before. We see an Orzhov Basilica from our opponent. They floated some mana, untapped the bounce land on the stack twice, once with the Candelabra and once with the Deserted Temple, so generating a decent chunk of mana there allows them into Sisay. Okay, and we draw into some stuff here. The Commander's Plate I'm not sure is going to be all that useful, but we don't have a means of shuffling anyway, so I'm just going to take the life here. So we can play a swamp, play the Mana Crypt, don't have green mana for 2 green spells, so it can be a Commander's Plate. And then I'll do the Beast Within on my opponent's upkeep, because I don't think he's going to be able to do anything with Sisay. He might assume that he will be able to, if we allow it to go through to his main phase here. The risk being, of course, that he might be able to do something about us casting a Beast Within, especially with blue mana. Makes Abzan mana. And there we see an Azusa, so before our opponent goes off with lands, we'll go for the Sisay getting blown up. It might be that they can replay their commander here because they've got all the bounce land untap shenanigans. Depends what lands they have in hand, of course. We assume they've got some if they're playing Azusa. And there's one of them. A Gruul Turf. Could have used the Beast Within on some of their bounce lands, I suppose. Bouncing the Deserted Temple and replaying it. And they've got mana to untap, so yep, they tap the Deserted Temple for mana, put 2 into the Candelabra, and untap their bounce lands here. Not enough to replay their commander though, thankfully. There's an Assassin's Trophy for us. We draw 2 cards again, 2 additional cards. Alright, and yeah, that's looking pretty good. We'll keep these. So I feel okay about fixing our opponent's green mana now, seeing as how he's generating a bunch of mana anyway. We want the Jeweled Lotus. I want to use the Assassin's Trophy on this thing. So we'll get our commander into play. We'll throw the Kaya's Ghost form onto the Yargle. Commander's Plate not going to be too useful against green creatures. And then we'll see if they want to do anything at the end of the turn. If they tap out, I'll go Assassin's Trophy onto the Candelabra. Doesn't look as though they are doing anything though. Do we let them untap with blue mana? Yeah, they get an untapped land with Assassin's Trophy either way, so I'll go after the Candelabra now. That gets blown up straight away, so our opponent doesn't have any protection magic. And they don't have any basics in the deck either apparently, so there were no downsides to that Assassin's Trophy whatsoever. Using the Deserted Temple to untap the Orzhov Basilica. They've got 6 mana available. Dropping a Jetmir's Garden as well. Naya tap land. And there we see the new Sheoldred, so when it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacks a non-token creature or planeswalker. Kaya's Ghost Form going to do its job here. Return it to the command zone. No, we don't. And that brings the Yargle straight back into play. Alright, and an Undying Evil is excellent, as is the Yavimaya Hollow, so Cultivate is a shuffle effect at least, but I don't want to take 4 life to keep it. I will keep these 2 though. So it's Yavimaya Hollow. The Garruk's Uprising can give our Yargle Trample, and we do draw a card off that, so that gets us into the Cultivate. Then we've got the Undying Evil, so let's go for tapping down the Yavimaya Hollow, and we'll equip the Commander's Plate for 3 mana onto our Commander. So that protects us from everything apart from the colours that our opponent has on the side of the battlefield there. They do have to block, and we do have Trample thanks to the enchantment. But we've got protection from things like Swords to Plowshares and Pongifies and things, so hopefully that will help us. They just throw a Beast token in the way. We have 9 toughness at the moment, so they go to 18 Commander. They're going to have to do something next turn. Noteworthy that with Undying Evil, if your Commander already has a plus counter on it, then it won't work, so that is something that we have to bear in mind. A Mystifying Maze from our opponent, which they tap down. That would help them, because it gets through protection from colours. We'd need Hexproof to get past that thing. They could also flip round Sheoldred into the True Scriptures as well. That would destroy our Commander, but obviously we have the Undying Evil for that. Okay, we've got Invasion of Talvada. When it enters the battlefield, return a non-battle permanent from graveyard to the battlefield, so they're grabbing back the Candelabra. And we're not going to be all that interested in defending this, but they'll get, creature token buff. And those are white and black spirits. We don't have protection from black, so they will be able to block with them. Untapping a couple of bounce lands again, because they got the Candelabra back. And that does mean that they can hold up the mana for the Mystifying Maze. So we need to be finding some new cards that can give us hexproof, preferably. We've taken a lot of life to the Sylvan Library. They managed to blow up the Invasion of Talvada straight away, so getting into the Broken Sky, we didn't take any life at least, so that's more life that we can take to Mana Crypt and the Sylvan Library. Making a Spirit token at the end of the turn. We do have Trample, but it's the Mystifying Maze that we're worried about. We lose the Mana Crypt flip, going down to 12. And there is a Farseek. Alright, a Maelstrom Pulse can't get rid of the Mystifying Maze. It can get rid of the token generator. I'm not sure we're too bothered about that though, to be honest. Yeah, Farseek as a shuffle effect will be useful here, I think. I'm going to forego the Maelstrom Pulse and the Fake Your Own Death. And then I will shuffle those cards away with the Farseek, and we're going to draw 2 new cards with the Night's Whisper. Night's Whisper obviously has us draw 2 and lose 2. Okay, Baleful Mastery, drop a Forest for the turn. Might as well throw in the Arcane Signet here. I'll save the shuffle effect on the Cultivate. We can hold up both the Undying Evil and Yavimaya at this point. So not going to bother swinging in. One, because we'll have a blocker up, but also because we don't want them to exile our Commander. It'll come back in, but we'll have to pay 3 to re-equip. And that could be relevant. We need another draw phase. Unfortunately, they get to do obnoxious Candelabra stuff here. So tapping them down, they float 2 mana and untap again with the Candelabra. And there we see a Renin 7. We don't have protection from the tokens that will make. Can blow it up with a Baleful Master if we want to. So revealing the top 4 cards. There is another bounce land in the Boros Garrison. That's the only land they hit though. So using the Deserted Temple to untap the Gruul land. And then playing out the Boros Garrison straight away. And bounced and replayed the Deserted Temple. Okay, so swinging in with Sheoldred, that has Menace. So we're going to have to exile that here because We need as much life as we can lay our hands on. And they're tapping down a bunch of mana in response, including the Mystify Maze, and yeah, I think that was going to be a mistake. They've obviously got something to do here, but they can't tap down that Mystify Maze, so we're going to have to let go of the Sheoldred there. We take 2 to the Spirit token, and just praying that we get into a means of hexproof here, really. Either that or a means of removing the Mystify Maze, winning to the Mana Crypt flip this time. And this is our last chance, really. Okay, a Rogue's Passage doesn't help. Yeah, none of that helps. So both of those on top. And I think we're pretty much done here. Play the Rogue's Passage, shuffle with the Cultivate. We can swing in and draw an extra card with the Mystifying Maze because they have to exile it. And when it enters, we draw to our enchantment. But yeah, looking like our opponent's got us here with that Mystifying Maze. So I'll just swing in and force them to use it. Might be able to draw into an instant speed means of sacrificing our commander and gaining some life. So our commander enters, triggers the Garruk's Uprising, and yeah, it's just a land. We're never going to do anything this game apparently, so we'll just let our opponent deal with us. Revealing Arcane Lighthouse with the Wren, a Primeval Bounty. Be able to put plus counters on their stuff here, and that should allow them to get through to us. So dropping the Arcane Lighthouse gains them 3 life, and the Homeward Path as well gains them another 3 life, some classic lands there. And they do tap for green thanks to our Yavimaya. Tapping out, untapping their Orzhov Basilica with the Deserted Temple. No doubt going to put mana into the Candelabra, so targeting their 2 mana lands, the lands that generate 2 mana, 3 mana floating. So they'll have 9 mana this turn. They're definitely hoping to win because they've tapped down the Mystifying Maze. Making a beast token, there is Galter and Mavrin. And then they swing in. Going to create a tapped and attacking 3/2 lifelink trample dinosaur with the new commander, Galter and Mavrin. Nothing we can do here. So that's the game. It's a good game to my opponent. And yeah, not too much luck for us there, unfortunately, against that Mystifying Maze. Toxic Deluge, a little bit too late. Rite of Consumption is what we needed, so one more turn and we might have had our opponent. Although they were gaining too much life there, so I'm not sure that would have helped us either. Yeah, don't think we were drawing into anything really. Maybe need more hexproof in the deck then, as opposed to these Undying shenanigans. Anyway, I will fiddle around with the deck a bit more. It's a fun one regardless, so if you want to see more from it, then be sure to let me know. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.